There has to be pure intention on the part of the giver. And then there has to be goodwill on the end of the receiver. But there's a lot of things that get in the way of both that intention, like if you're an immature giver like I used to be, or if something is getting in the way as the receiver, such as this is what they should have done. This is the level of trouble they should have gone to show me their love, or this is, they should have listened. I know how deep their pockets are. They didn't go deep enough. There's a lot of things that get in the way, both on the giving end as well as on the receiving end.
The content presented and discussed is purely intended to be general and educational in nature and should not be construed as specifically tailored investment, financial planning, tax, legal, psychological diagnosis, or other professional advice.
Hello. We are back. You have the magnificent Dr. Abbey Durkin on the line with us, with Manny Henson, certified financial planner and guru, financial coach guru. And you're with us on Ask My Man Manny, the podcast that keeps on giving. And so I'm glad that we had a little bit of a break between our last episode that we recorded, but I'm glad we're here. I want to call this the second season of our podcast. We had a lot of things we learned from our last season and a lot of things we have coming out for you all this season. And because we're in that time of the year, I and Abbey thought about talking about a very important subject, that is giving, the importance of giving, the emotions of giving, finances of giving. And so I am very excited about our talk today. And with that, I want to go ahead and let you get the ball rolling, Abbey. When you think about giving in this time of year, there's a positive feeling about it, but it also gives people some anxiety about it.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you need to think about mentally before you make the decision on what you give and how much you give?
I think, we often, when we give, part of what makes it so much fun is we imagine the other person's reaction, when they open it up, when they see the effort and the time that you've taken to put that thing together. I'm thinking, of course, about various celebrations towards the end of the year where gifts are exchanged. And looking back on my own life, and especially my childhood, remembering how badly that actually went, from situations as a little kid of having this overgrown expectation of what was going to be waiting for me just because I asked for it, or just because I made a magic list that I thought was going to be received by a magic elf, And so there was this intense mixed feeling of anticipation and then disappointment or confusion. And then on the opposite, like the very far end of the spectrum, absolute rage, and I'm thinking of some family members that received things like my dad. He used to sell insurance. This was way back, late 80s, early 90s. And we would joke around that at Christmas time, he was going to get each of us our own insurance policies and call it a day and think that he had done a really good thing. And of course, it's not a gift because it doesn't cost you anything. In that case, it literally would be a product that he's selling. And he thought that was acceptable, right? So it's not all sunshine and rainbows when you think about it. It's not just about the intention. And there was a very striking example of this over the summer with the tragedy in Maui, where you've had several very prior to Maui, well-loved, uncanceled, wholesome individuals. But the second that they offer a gift, they're doing it with that same kind of blind intention, positive potentially intention as my misguided dad. I'm going to give everyone their own insurance policy. Well, in this situation, it was several people who had more than enough funds to share, not really opening up their own pockets and instead turning to others and asking them to open it up. And so then it doesn't really feel like a gift. It's the same way that my family and I felt several Christmases in a row where various gifts were, opened and it was met with extreme disappointment or offense. And so it's not really all about the intention with which you do something. It really is, does this gift represent something that you have sacrificed for? Does this represent something that is special to you? Or is this something that is just a convenience? Is it eyewash? Is it something that you're doing because it makes you look good, right? And then the entire gift is ruined, right? So what are your thoughts about that?
No, I really do feel like the same way. And a lot of it comes about with expectations. And I really think about equity, the word equity. And there's tax equity, there's giving equity. And if you think about even our tax system, right, we have a judgment, an idea of how much everyone should be giving. Right now, you believe that maybe two people in theory who make, say, $100,000 should pay the same amount of money in taxes. But if someone makes it works a lot harder, and it takes a lot of time to make that $100,000. Maybe they work, they make a living in retail, for example, versus someone who's picking stocks and trading from their couch. We expect that person to pay a certain amount. And so I think in giving, it's the same way. I think what happened with the situation on Maui, we made a decision to say, well, we're okay with the fact that you gave, but we're going to look past that because we think you should have gave a different way. We think you should have given more than what you gave. I guess that's somewhat of a frustration. Because on one side, and I can see both sides. One side, you say you're supposed to be giving. We help create this person or create this wealth, or there's this expectation that people deserve a certain amount of contribution from people who are more fortunate. The other side of it, a lot of people don't have to do anything, and we should be grateful for people who have to do something. And so, in the end, I have some ideas that can help people who want to give and don't necessarily want to make it public about how much they give. And so there's a number of different solutions there. But I want to stick around with this emotional part of it all. I think first and foremost, you got to make sure that you can give. So many people give away, make permanent gifts, feel resentful because of the fact that they end up being in worse situations longer term. And then they turn around and they ask the other person, hey, can you help me out? And they're like, sorry, I can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It also it speaks to gratitude on the end of the recipient and what gets in the way of that gratitude. The way that we would receive a gift from a child who made it themselves is going to be pretty different than the way that we receive a gift from a partner who we know exactly what we told them and exactly what their budget is, and it's still messed up. There's a lot more layers of complexity when you're receiving a gift from a peer or from a colleague or from a partner, from a friend, than you are from someone when you really can measure it purely on intention. There's so many different ways for giving gifts to go wrong, but part of it is the attitude of the recipient. And I don't mean to let bad gift givers off the hook, because I will tell you what my toxic trait is. One of my toxic traits, and my family can attest to this, is I give the gift I want. So my sister, for example, is never, ever, ever liked chocolate. I still can't believe that we're related, because I would bathe in it if I could. And she's just kind of not here or there. Chocolate and beauty products. Well, I think there was a period of time in my adolescence when that is all that she got. And I would sit there and I would wait for her to go, I don't really like it. Do you want it? And I say, oh, I'll take that off your hands. No problem. So yes, there's an intention. There has to be pure intention on the part of the giver. And then there has to be goodwill on the end of the receiver. But there's a lot of things that get in the way of both that intention. Like if you're an immature giver, like I used to be, or if something is getting in the way as the receiver, such as this is what they should have done. This is the level of trouble they should have gone to show me their love, or this is, they should have listened. I know how deep their pockets are. They didn't go deep enough. There's a lot of things that get in the way, both on the giving end as well as on the receiving end.
So where does that come from? Where is that emotions and and sense of, dare I say the word because it's a really loaded word, entitlement come from when it comes to what you expect someone to do when they receive something from you.
It's a communication minefield. So I think that it comes from these long-running scripts of shoulds, and those shoulds are often not expressed out loud, but they're in there and they're super strong. So we have an idea of what a birthday should look like. And that's everything from, I told them I didn't want anything and I really meant it, to I told them I didn't want anything and I didn't mean it at all. And they should know I didn't mean it. There's this entire communication quagmire that gets loaded into this gift situation. And where does it come from? And I hate to be the stereotypical, leather elbow patches psychologist talking about childhood, but where else does it come from? It is super important. I just hate doing what everybody else does. I need to be a maverick, but we do have to talk about where did this script come from of how much should you give and what does it mean to give? And then how do you receive graciously? Some people were never really taught how to receive graciously. Other people were taught that giving gifts is pro forma, that you don't really put a lot of thought into it. And for other people, it's the be all end all. I live overseas in a culture where the act of giving a gift, the paper, the wrapping, that is as expensive as the gift itself, the amount of time that was taken in arranging it and putting it together. It's essentially like the origami of the paper is a gift. In addition, you see the process the person went through to make it perfect. So that's a really high standard. And if you're not part of that culture, ethnically, like me, I wasn't born and raised and steeped in it. So if I manage to pull off something that doesn't look half bad, then my hope is that the person sees the effort and doesn't focus on the flaw. But we think about, where did these things begin? And it does start with those early giving experiences, and some of those can be quite traumatic. And I don't mean to throw around that word trauma loosely, because I am, I do real trauma work, trauma with a capital T. But then there's these, smaller traumas that they still are significant, but it doesn't involve that threat of life. So one trauma might be when you are in that recipient mode, like you're a kid. And let's say that you don't have a whole lot of life context. Maybe you're 4 or 5 years old. The things that you understand are that there's this tradition. You're supposed to do something nice for somebody. They're supposed to do something nice for you. And you really, really express your desire that you really want this thing. And it's promised. And your parents say, or your caregivers say, well, yeah, that should be what Santa gets you. They take you to the store. You sit on the Santa's lap, you tell him, and there's this promise that you're going to get that thing, right? So then on that morning, parents think that they've done a great thing because they've taken you to see Santa and you've got the photos to prove it. You said whatever to the jolly old elf. The parents didn't listen, but then at Christmas time, what happens? There's this betrayal, and it's not a big traumatic betrayal, but it's a betrayal. And so then that person carries that with them of, I just don't my words matter, right? These big, deep internal scripts that I end up unpacking as an adult working with adults. Mostly I end up unpacking these scripts of, yes, of course your words matter. Where did this come from? And then we pull and we realize, oh yeah, it was because maybe there was 4 years of this person being told, yeah, Santa's got your back, bro. And then nothing shows up. So then there's this script of suspicion and betrayal and maybe not keeping your promises. And maybe that's been normalized. And then they turn into a really cruddy giver on their own terms. So you can't escape going back. Yeah. You can't really escape going back to, what were your first experiences of giving? What were your first opportunities to really show somebody that you love them? What are non-monetary ways? And what have those been? What have those non-monetary ways been that you've received? And those points, for our loyal listeners who have been hearing our stories for the past 10 sessions know that, Manny, you and I both had times in our lives where we were really, really struggling. And those were lean years. Those are not years of us making huge promises to our loved ones about everything that they can expect in the giving season. Those were, you get what you get. You be happy for what you have. You get one thing, if that. Sometimes all you get is an act of service. You don't even get a gift. You get like an IOU for when you get paid. I've been there. I've been having to delay, certainly in my childhood and some adolescence, delayed these things and say, yeah, it's not really going to happen this year. So we're going to have to focus on showing how we feel another way. So those, of course, are hugely loaded emotional things. And then when you tie in this performance aspect, the potential for betrayal, the questioning of intention, right? It does get pretty intense. What have your experiences?
You said a lot there. And it's so interesting because just this week, Aria, my 5-year-old, she came to my wife. She said, Mommy, is Santa Claus real? And so we had to have that conversation. So, and my wife, she handled it really, really well. She said, hey, Santa Claus is the spirit of giving. And we all can do, follow that spirit. It's not necessarily a real person. And
I love that answer.
She's better
wow.
with wordsmith.
Wow.
I'm kind of paraphrasing. I'm
Santa
paraphrasing.
is the spirit of giving.
And there's teachers have had to come out to people and say that. Because I remember when I was, an adolescent and I was straight A student doing very well. And I went to Santa and I told Santa I want to do this. I told my parents I want to do this. And everybody came home after the end of the winter break and they're talking about their new bikes and their new this and their new that. And not necessarily Santa is not by my house that much, but I kind of took a little bit personal. I just also have to have a birthday right after Christmas. So it was always kind of a double whammy for me. But no, obviously as you grow up, you realize what you didn't realize then is that there's scarcity in the world. Everyone doesn't have everything they want all the time. And if we always compared ourselves to other people, we feel very depressed all the time, which is another thing. And when it comes to giving, I think one of the most important things to do is to give without expectation. Like if I give, I want to make sure I'm giving for the right reasons. I'm giving because I feel the need in giving and I'm not expecting a certain response. And I think that can be hard for some people to accept because you did put some effort into things. And it does help. It does feel good to have someone reciprocate either in actions or in kind. But in reality, it's not going to happen. Yeah, I was going to say, give with your time. And then also don't set long-term expectations on how much you're going to give to people. Because once you start making that long-term expectations and you set a trend, then people expect you to keep that trend, snow, rain, sleet, or snow, And so I would say, especially when it comes to people outside of your family, your organizations, your religious organizations, your schools, your education institutions, arboretum that you give to, right? Just set some expectations that, hey, this is not necessarily always going to be the case. You don't feel the stress from them asking you all the time. And like I have 4 different nonprofit organizations that I spend my time with. I'm in a point in time in this business where we're building in, and a lot of our resources have to go back towards it. I would love to cut a check to my old university and my school district endowments and those other different organizations. But I can give with my time, and I can make myself available to coach a junior in college, or I can give my time to the investment board of a hospice, which I actually do. And so that's the way I feel like I'm giving.
Yeah. I think what complicates it is when we start viewing corporations or public figures on the same level or wavelength as individuals in our life. And that might have been part of the issue with what happened last year is, when we saw the good intention gone wrong in a big way with the Maui tragedy, this one of the things that really fueled that outrage was we knew these people, the 2 prominent figures, we knew them and loved them, and we almost viewed them as not quite to this parasocial relationship, but these people are like in our homes all the time, virtually through our TVs. You know, we go to all their movies. They're well known for being compassionate and loving and thoughtful. And so our expectations as people were inflated for, okay, you know, these two powerhouses have come together. What are they going to do? And then the absolute letdown of, okay, wait, what? You guys have, you know, $1 billion between you, and you want us who are paycheck to paycheck to open up. And that massive, massive disappointment fueled that outrage, right? The insult to injury. And that flavor runs through in a micro way, and right through the family, and right through personal relationships, and right through B2B relationships, and right through corporate relationships. So it really does come to those expectations. And I didn't say those expectations were unreasonable. You know, I think a lot of us, it's a reasonable expectation that if you have two incredible powerhouse types of figures, they're not going to be doing the here, you know, auntie, look what I made. You know, they're going to be giving you the real stuff, you know, like, we're going to take care of it, guys. Like, that's the real gift. But we do have to check out what our expectations is and say, okay, I checked it out, Dr. Abbey, and I'm right. My expectations are reality based.
Right.
They're valid. And this was a crummy situation. And so it doesn't always mean when we talk about managing your expectations, it doesn't mean reduce them. It means do the work of really looking them in the eyeball, soberly, objectively, and saying, okay, am I using the same yardstick to measure this, or am I using a bigger yardstick? Is that bigger yardstick justified? And what does that measurement really mean to me? Is it a reflection of me? What impact does it have on my life and my relationship towards these people? So I wanted to bring that part of it up as well, that sometimes there's a confusion when we mix up the intention of an individual that is an actual flesh and blood single person versus the intention and the giving of a corporation that looks like an individual, which is confusing in these influencer times. And it's confusing in these social media times when people that we don't truly know they feel very familiar to us. That really lays the groundwork for some massive old time scripts of expectations and intention and giving and receiving to start rolling through.
And there's a lot of conspiracy theories too, which kind of gets me kind of anxious as a wealth manager. I recognize a lot of things that people think are purposeful and concerning about things are really, a lot of it's coincidental, right? So let's put your mind as a billionaire, right? And I've known billionaires, and a lot of them actually don't really necessarily know what they have. There are people who have millions of dollars and don't know what they invested. And so at a point in time where if you're an ultra high net worth person, you're going to be a wealth manager. A lot of people are in wealthy person. You're going to be investing in real estate. You're going to be investing in commodities. You're going to be investing in your local area, in the stock market and bonds and all kinds of other different things. That's normal. You know, most ultra high net worth people have a lot of their money in real estate and private. Whether the government or whether the society grows or not, I mean, it is dictated on population growth and productivity. Most wealthy people who have a lot of money are going to get wealthier over time. And it just seems bad to see when people are hurting and other people are still kind of moving and cruising along. And so there's this need to have an answer for those questions. But in most cases, I would find that most wealthy people don't necessarily, they know they own their home. They know a couple of things they own, but most people who have hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars or billions of dollars, they have a wealth manager who's making a lot of those decisions for them. And so the other part of it is insurance, how insurance works, right? If you have a house, if you have a loss, you never get hope. You always have a deductible. You always have some part of that loss is not recovered. So you can never, unless you set your house on fire and you did it on purpose, in this case is not it, you can never get more than what you had covered back. You always lose something in the end, and you're also paying higher premiums. So just the idea that people have a need to destroy. And Oprah and a couple of the other people that are, been blamed on this, I think what they thought was, all right, I'm a billionaire. Even if I gave every single dime I had, there's going to be more than what I have needed to make people whole. I can use my fame, I can give directly, and I can also help by getting other people to give too, right? We have, they might be billionaires, but there's hundreds of billions, trillions of dollars in wealth, right? That we can all give to Mao. We can all give, but that's not the story people heard. People heard, hey, these people were trying to get up. Now, I don't know the entire story completely. I'll be the first to say that I'm not there. I didn't read every single article about it. All I hear is like the overarching theme is they are going to, the government response was in some way in favor of people who are wealthier. And I don't, that other part of that, I still necessarily, that's just me. And that's just my opinion. The other part of this is there is a way to give. So in December, and a lot of people wealthy people are going to learn a lot about this, is you're going to look at your investments. You're going to see a lot of good profits on these tech stocks. NVIDIA is up a couple 100%. Now, you can give those investments directly, right? And the benefit of doing that is you don't have to pay the gain that's grown on it. So instead of having, say, $100,000 given to a certain calls with cash that you've already paid taxes on, what if you gave away a stock or shares of stock that represent both your original investment and your growth potential? Give $100,000 worth of that. And hey, you actually don't have to pay taxes on that money. And so that's one way of doing it. You can give as is the investment that you've grown. And a lot of organizations are set up to receive your stock, and they were more than happy to be helping you with having that done. The other part of this is called using a donor advised fund. I'm not sure if you ever heard about this, Dr. Durkin. So the idea of this is if you want to keep anonymity, you can give by this. So you can give cash, you can give stock, and then once the money is in that donor advised fund, you advise the fund to give to some charity in Maui, or some charity, the Red Cross, or your school, whatever the case may be. The receiving institution never knows who was giving that money. They know on the check or the stock that's been there, it came from an account under the name of the donor advised fund, but you keep the anonymity. You can tell whoever you want. You don't have to. You can say that I gave, and that how much I gave is personal to me, and I don't feel comfortable saying how much I gave. And you also get the benefit of the tax deduction as well. You can also give over time that way. So you can give once, maybe you have a banner year this year, you have a lot of NVIDIA, you give once, you get the deduction this year, and then gradually gift that money over time. There's a minimum amount that you have to give of that initial investment. There's rules involved in there, but that is something you can work with your accountant and your investment advisor, wealth manager on a strategy for. Mm-hmm. So those are just two ways: give directly to institutions directly, and then they can give to people you want to have gifted to, or you can do it through a donor advised fund. If you don't want the organization to have your contact number and be calling you every fundraise, that's one way of doing it. But there's definitely some, and the other part of it is for those people who are over 72, you might know that you have to do a required minimum distribution. Now you can still gift with the new retirement laws that were affirmed in 2022 in December, you can still gift money from your retirement account that represents your required minimum distribution and forgo the mandatory taxes on it. And so you can have the money go directly. You typically want to work with your custodian. Don't wait to December 30th to do this. Kind of start thinking about how much you're going to give this month, beginning of next month, and then work with your custodian to make sure that the money goes directly to that. And so those are my 3 points today. And I'm glad everybody is here. And if you're thinking about giving, think about the emotions behind it. Think about your strategy. You can give without people knowing. You don't have to give for the right reason if you do. And any other last words you have about this?
Just because somebody put a strategy to it doesn't make it any less of a gift. I know when people hear the word gift, sometimes they think about it being spontaneous, emotional, super thoughtful. All of those things can be true, and you still can have consulted an advisor like Manny or myself on how to navigate this minefield But just because there's a strategy doesn't make it any less personal. So don't let that deter you from doing something a little bit out of the box and investing a strategy into your giving this season.
And I think what we might want to do in the next episode, we're talking about right now, like short-term gifts, but the other part of this is we have a lot of people in our who are listening group who own businesses and hold other things that are as liquid, and they're thinking about the next generation and legacy and giving.
Oh, yeah.
Giving in that way. So how do we make a strategy to pay the tax man their pound of flesh, and also deal with the emotions of transitioning from a full-time job and this being your identity, this running this business, to maybe your children or your grandchildren or some other stranger coming in and perhaps buying your. So I think maybe we have to dedicate some time to that subject too, because that's a very long-term thing. And a lot of business owners don't have a strategy. Succession
planning is a gigantic issue here in Japan, and definitely have interest in that. It affects a lot, a lot. The generational families, we can compare Saudi too, because Saudi is full of generational family wealth as well as business strategy. So there's succession planning. There's the emotions of letting that go. There's pride. It is absolutely not just a corporate decision. You better believe there's a huge human element in this conversation.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I want to thank you for being a part of this conversation, because the emotions of it is, the genesis of that is something I learned from you. And I'm glad that we talked about this. And I'll look forward to our next conversation. Yeah. And I want to thank my listeners and our listeners from the bottom of our heart for you to be here. We are making moves from leaps and bounds. I'm seeing the numbers and people are sharing. I wish you to continue success. And I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope you find value to someone else you may know. So hit that like button, share it wherever you are, whatever platform you're on. Until next time, I'll see you when I see you.
Bye.
The content presented and discussed is purely intended to be general and educational in nature and should not be construed as specifically tailored investment, financial planning, tax, legal, psychological diagnosis, or other professional advice. Any data cited is valid as of the date of presentation, but please know that such data are frequently subject to change. Any investment performance referenced is purely past performance, which is no guarantee of any future performance. Nothing contained in this course should be construed as an offer to sell, a solicitation of an offer to buy, or a recommendation of any security or other financial product or investment strategy. All investment, tax, and financial planning strategies involve risk that you should be prepared to bear. Investment, financial planning, tax, legal, and other professional advice is specific to each individual and entity.